The words stung like ice water to the face. We're using your medical school fund for Marcus. Harvard Medical just accepted him early admission. My brother's face remained carefully neutral while my parents beamed with unmistakable pride. I'm Daniel Kaplan, 21, and this is the story of how my parents' decision to sacrifice my future for my brother's greater potential backfired in ways none of us could have imagined. Growing up in our Jewish academic family, success had always been defined in extremely narrow terms. Straight as weren't achievements, they were expectations. Academic awards weren't celebrations. They were confirmations of the natural order. My brother Marcus and I were just 13 months apart, unwilling competitors in our parents' unspoken Olympics of achievement. Marcus was the golden child, valedictorian, published research at 17, perfect NCAT scores, destined to become the renowned surgeon our father had always wanted to be before settling for a career in hospital administration. I was different, good grades but not exceptional, captain of the robotics team, which my mother dismissively called those little toys, a fascination with musical instruments that my father called a distraction from real studies. Only my grandfather, Zaid Isaac, seemed to appreciate my different path. He lived in a small apartment above his workshop in Brooklyn, where I spent countless weekends learning to craft and repair musical instruments. His gnarled hands would guide mine over violin bodies and piano actions, teaching me to hear what others couldn't. Different fingers make different music, he would say in his thick accent, blue eyes twinkling behind wire-rimmed glasses. Not everyone is meant to be a surgeon. Some must create the music that heals in other ways. The medical school fund had been growing since my bar mitzvah. Every gift, every summer job paycheck, every scholarship award carefully deposited and grown to nearly $95,000. Not enough for the full ride at an elite medical school, but enough for a solid start. I'd been accepted to a good program, though not as prestigious as Harvard. Then came my parents' announcement over our weekly Shabbat dinner. "Daniel," my mother began, "we need to discuss something important." My father straightened his yarmulke, a nervous habit I recognized from previous difficult conversations. "Marcus has been accepted to Harvard Medical School." I nodded, unsurprised. The sun rises in the east, taxes are inevitable, and Marcus gets into Harvard. These were simply facts of life. "But there's a financial issue," my mother continued, folding her hands precisely on the tablecloth. "Even with his scholarship, the expenses are substantial. The prestige of Harvard opens doors that other schools simply can't." The cold understanding settled over me. "You're taking my medical school fund." "We're reallocating family resources," my father corrected, using his administrator voice. "Your program is more affordable, and you can supplement with loans. Marcus needs this advantage now. And I don't." The question hung in the air, answered by uncomfortable silence. My mother reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. "Daniel, be practical. Marcus has potential to become a groundbreaking surgeon. Your interests are more diversified." The words landed like carefully placed surgical cuts. Diversified. Not focused, not exceptional, not worth the investment. "Have you told Zaid about this?" I asked, knowing my grandfather would be furious. My parents exchanged glances. "Your grandfather is from a different generation," my father said diplomatically. "He wouldn't understand how these opportunities work. It's better not to worry him." Later that night, Marcus knocked on my bedroom door. "Danny, I just heard. I didn't ask them to do this. I can turn down Harvard." "Don't be stupid," I cut him off. "We both know you're going to Harvard. We both know you'll be brilliant. Go cure cancer or whatever." He lingered in the doorway. "I'll pay you back, every penny, once I'm established." I almost laughed at his earnestness. "Sure, Dr. Kaplan. Whatever helps you sleep at night." The next morning, I took the subway to Brooklyn, to Zaid's workshop. The familiar smells of wood polish, rosin, and coffee enveloped me as I entered. Zaid was at his workbench, delicately adjusting a cello bridge. "Ah, Daniel," he said without looking up. "Right on time. Hand me that small file." I did as instructed, watching as he made a microscopic adjustment to the bridge. "How did you know I was coming?" "When else would you come but when your heart is troubled?" He set down his tools and looked at me fully. "Tell me." So I did. About Harvard. About Marcus. About my vanished medical school fund. About being diversified instead of focused. Zaid listened silently, his weathered face unreadable. When I finished, he walked to an old safe in the corner of his workshop. From it, he withdrew a worn leather portfolio. Your parents, he said in Yiddish, see only what they expect to see. They look at Marcus and see a reflection of their ambitions. They look at you and see only what doesn't match their template. He handed me the portfolio. This is for you, but not yet. Keep it safe. Open it after I'm gone, not before. Zaid, don't talk like that. You're not going anywhere. He smiled, patting my cheek. Everyone goes somewhere eventually, Daniel. The trick is knowing what to leave behind. I couldn't know then how prophetic those words would be, or the secrets my grandfather had kept hidden for decades. The next few months passed in a flurry of adjustments. I withdrew from my medical school program without the fund, even that was financially out of reach. Instead, I took a job at a music shop in the city while enrolling in night classes at a local community college. My parents acted as if this was the natural order of things. This is more appropriate for your level of commitment, my mother said when I showed her my revised plans, the word appropriate carrying layers of disappointment. Marcus left for Harvard orientation in July. The family hosted an elaborate send-off party, with relatives flying in from as far as California and Israel. I spent most of it helping Zaid tune the baby grand piano in my parents' living room. Listen to this, Zaid murmured, playing a simple melody. The piano sounds good, yes, but listen beneath the notes. I closed my eyes, focusing on the vibrations. There's a resonance that wasn't there before. Yes, his eyes lit up. Not everyone would hear that. You have the ear, Daniel, and the hands. It was a small moment of validation in a summer that offered few others. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 3 a.m. Zaid had suffered a massive heart attack in his workshop. By the time I reached the hospital, he was gone. The funeral was held at our synagogue, the same place where I'd had my bar mitzvah, where Marcus had been celebrated for every academic achievement. I stood silently through the service, feeling the weight of the leather portfolio Zaid had given me, now stored in my apartment. 3 days after the funeral, the family gathered at the office of Mr. Goldstein, Zaid's lawyer for over 40 years. Before we begin, Mr. Goldstein said, adjusting his glasses, Isaac left very specific instructions about how this meeting should proceed. My father nodded impatiently. My parents had been speculating about Zaid's modest estate for days, assuming his workshop and tools would be donated to a trade school. First, Mr. Goldstein continued, we'll watch a video Mr. Kaplan recorded 6 months ago. The screen on the wall flickered to life, and there was Zaid, sitting in his workshop among his beloved instruments. He looked directly into the camera and began to speak, not in his typical Yiddish accented English, but in crisp, perfect diction that I'd never heard from him before. My dear family, he said, I have some things to tell you about who I really am and why I've spent the last 50 years pretending to be a simple instrument maker who doesn't understand modern business. The room fell silent as they continued. For those who knew me only as Isaac Kaplan, immigrant craftsman, this may come as a surprise. Before coming to America, I was Isaac Kappelman, concert pianist and composer in Vienna, and later, chief acoustical engineer for Strauss Instruments, once Europe's premier manufacturer of fine pianos and orchestral strings. Gasps filled the lawyer's office. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father sat up straighter, suddenly alert. I came to America in 1971, not as a refugee seeking a better life as you were told, but as part of a carefully arranged transfer of proprietary acoustical designs and manufacturing techniques. The patents I developed formed the foundation for several major American instrument manufacturers, generating considerable wealth that I chose to keep private for reasons that will soon become clear. My father's face had paled. All those years of dismissing music as a hobby, and his own father had been a pioneer in acoustic engineering. I maintained my simple craftsman persona because I wanted to see how my family would develop naturally, without being influenced by wealth or prestige. I watched my son raise his grandsons, making choices that revealed his true character and values. Zaid's image leaned forward slightly, his eyes intense. I watched you push Daniel aside in favor of Marcus, not because one was more talented than the other, but because one fit your narrow definition of success. You saw Marcus's academic achievements and were suitably impressed, but I saw Daniel's hands at work in my shop, solving acoustic problems that would challenge senior engineers at Steinway. My mother made a small sound. Marcus, who had flown back from Harvard for the funeral, stared at the floor. The instruments Daniel helped me restore weren't just old pianos and violins. They were tests I created, engineering challenges disguised as simple repairs. Without formal training, working purely from intuition and self-taught knowledge, he solved acoustical problems that would challenge professionals with decades of experience. Tears blurred my vision as I remembered those long afternoons in the workshop, Zaid watching quietly as I worked. He hadn't just been teaching me, he'd been evaluating me. And so, Zaid continued, I made my decision. My estate, including my patents, investments, and total holdings of approximately $38 million, will be distributed as follows. The room erupted. $38 million? My Uncle William actually dropped his water glass, shattering it on the hardwood floor. To my grandson Marcus, I leave $1 million in a restricted educational trust. This should cover any expenses at Harvard Medical School and beyond, provided he maintains his academic standing. The money can only be used for legitimate educational and research expenses, verified by the trustee. Marcus's face showed confusion. $1 million was a fortune, but we could all tell there was more coming, and he wasn't going to get it. To my son and daughter-in-law, Zaid continued, looking at my parents, I leave the sum of $500,000. With this stipulation, it can only be accessed after Daniel has received full funding for his education, as compensation for the medical school fund you redirected. My father started to object, but my mother gripped his arm, silencing him. They both looked stunned. The remainder of my estate, including all patents, workshop, tools, instrument collection, and investment portfolios, I leave to my grandson Daniel Kaplan. Not because he is more worthy than Marcus, but because he has demonstrated the same passion for acoustical innovation that drove my own career. More importantly, he has shown integrity and resilience in the face of family betrayal. I couldn't breathe. $36 million. Patents, the workshop, all of it. Additionally, Zaid added with a slight smile, I've arranged for Daniel to have an apprenticeship at Steinway & Sons, should he choose to accept it. They've been searching for someone with his particular talents for some time. The video image of Zaid sat back, his face softening. A final word to my family. Wealth does not create wisdom. Marcus, your academic achievements are admirable, but true success comes from more than test scores. Daniel, your path has been harder, but it has made you stronger. He looked directly at my parents. Remember that parents should nurture their children's natural gifts, not force them into predetermined molds. He looked directly into the camera one last time. The workshop is yours now, Daniel. The old Viennese violin in the display case has a false bottom in its case. You'll find all my research notes there. I think you'll know what to do with them. The screen went dark, leaving us in stunned silence. Mr. Goldstein cleared his throat. There are additional documents to sign, but the video will is legally binding. Mr. Kaplan had it properly witnessed and notarized. He was extremely thorough. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and family drama. Marcus alternated between shocked silence and awkward congratulations. My parents sat stunned, occasionally murmuring about all those years and never knew. Uncle William suggested that, as the eldest male relative, he should manage the inheritance for me. My mother quickly seconded this, mentioning family responsibility and proper supervision. I let Mr. Goldstein handle these suggestions. As Zaid's chosen executor, he had clear instructions about attempts to contest or manipulate the will. That evening, I went to the workshop, my workshop now. The Viennese violin case opened easily, its false bottom revealing decades of notebooks filled with Zaid's elegant handwriting, acoustic formulas, resonance calculations, material sciences, innovation after innovation he had kept hidden all these years. Mixed in with the technical papers was a personal letter addressed to me. My dearest Daniel, by now you know who I really was. I'm sorry for the deception, but I needed to see you work without the pressure of my reputation. Your mind works like mine, hearing patterns others miss, finding solutions in unexpected places. The night your parents took your medical school fund, I almost revealed everything. But I knew that money alone wouldn't solve the real problem. You needed time to find your strength, to prove to yourself what I already knew, that success doesn't always follow the expected path. The patents and acoustic technologies in these notebooks are valuable, but the real treasure is your own potential. Don't let anyone define that potential for you. Not your parents, not society, not even me. All my love. Zaid. P.S. Check the old Bissendorfer piano in the corner. I think you'll find it's not quite as ordinary as it appears. 6 months have passed since that day in the lawyer's office. I'm now studying acoustical engineering at Juilliard, after their admissions board received a very interesting recommendation from the former chief engineer of Strauss Instruments. The patents Zaid left me have already generated enough licensing revenue to fund a scholarship program for musicians from disadvantaged backgrounds. Marcus is still at Harvard, doing well enough to maintain his educational trust. Our relationship has actually improved now that we're no longer competing for the same resources or parental approval. He called last week to ask my advice about a medical device he's designing to help surgeons with fine motor control, a bridge between our worlds. My parents are slowly coming to terms with everything, both their mistakes and their assumptions about success. Dad actually asked to hear my latest acoustic design project, and Mom hasn't mentioned more practical careers in months. The Bissendorfer piano in Zaid's workshop turned out to contain a revolutionary acoustic amplification system he'd been quietly developing, one that preserves the natural timbre of stringed instruments while projecting sound more efficiently than traditional methods. The music industry went crazy when I published his research, with multiple companies now competing to develop it. I'm overseeing the teams, ensuring my grandfather's final innovation is properly realized. But my favorite moments are still in the workshop, surrounded by instruments and possibilities, just like when Zaid was alive. Sometimes when I'm deep in problem-solving mode, I swear I can hear his voice. Different fingers make different music. Last week, a young girl from the neighborhood stopped by the workshop, curious about the sounds coming from inside. She reminded me of myself at that age, drawn to music but unsure if she belonged in that world. I smiled and waved her in just as Zaid had done for me years ago. "Would you like to learn how instruments really sing?" I asked. Her eyes lit up as she nodded eagerly. "Well," I said, opening a violin case, "let me tell you a story about my grandfather."